as Prabhupada is writing in the purport, as referred to above, not only ordinary literatures devoid of the transcendental glorification of the Lord are condemned, but also Vedic literatures and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they're devoid of devotional service. Okay, so even that is not something worth glorifying, even if it is Vedic literature, but if it is devoid of devotional service. So when speculation on the impersonal Brahman is condemned on the above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service? So such speculative knowledge and fruitive work cannot lead one to the goal of perfection. Fruitive work in which almost all people in general are engaged is always painful either in the beginning or the end. It can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. Okay? So in this way, all these types of literature, either it is simply mundane literature or even Vedic literature, but if there is no devotional service, then that is being condemned by Narad-Muni.
So it was written that when it's about Krishna, it's mentioned that crows are not attracted to such literature. But in the present, one may give this argument that in the present age everybody is like crow. So then how to answer this argument? We are propagating Krishna consciousness that everybody is like crow. Then how we will be attracted towards it?
So yes, that is true. The crow class men may not be attracted to such literature. But then, how did we all get attracted? Yes. It is only because of association, because of that association, some Ajnat Sukriti develops, and because of that Ajnat Sukriti, then one develops some attraction to such literatures.
You were mentioning some Vedic literatures which are not glorifying the Lord. Well, can you quote some examples?
Yeah, so the Karma Kanda section, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda. So all these are not directly dealing with devotional service.
Then in sometimes like Falastuti, generally Falastuti devotees will not take into much consideration. But many times it sees that Falastuti is like all the time it will be repeating.
Repeating what?
Mentioning Falastuti in the classes, how it can be understood.
So you are asking whether sometimes Falashruti is talking about some material things, that's what you're asking?
No. In Bhagavatam, Falastuti comes and it says, whoever hears this, one's heart gets cleansed. These kind of focusing more on that Falastuti part of the thing.
So are you trying to ask, sometimes we see Falashruti giving some material benedictions? Is that your question? Yes, yesterday this question was already asked. So ultimately, the ultimate goal of the Bhagavatam is to avoid Krishna praying. But then when one gets pure bhakti, then what is subsidiary to pure bhakti is also received. So bhoga, mukti, so all these automatically come to a devotee. And so therefore when these are also offered, it is not wrong. A devotee automatically gets those things. And if one does not want prema, then one can get only the lower things also. But then the ultimate goal of the entire Bhagavatam is simply prema. But when one gets prema, then what is subsidiary is automatically received. And so ultimately the principle is yayatamam prapadante. So one can, just like if one approaches the Supreme Lord for material benedictions, one can get them.
So in the devotee circle, there is no need for discussing that.
Yes, so that is not the goal of a devotee, but the Bhagavatam is presenting the complete picture. Okay, 13. Ato mahabhaga bhavana mogadre shuchi shrava satyarato drita vrataha urukramasya khila bandha muktaye samadhinanusmaratadvicheshtitam. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. So here he is telling the qualifications of Vyasadeva by which he is qualified to write about the glorification of the Lord. So he's saying, Atho, therefore, you're Mahabhaga, highly fortunate. Why? Because Amogadrik, Shuchi Shrava, Satyarataha, Dhritavrataha. So all these are the qualifications of Vyasadeva. So Amogadrik, his vision is perfect, spotless. We discussed Amogha. Amogha means spotless. Yes, Shuchi Shrava. His fame is also spotless, and he is fixed in his vows, determined, Dhritavrataha. So all these are his qualifications, and therefore Narad Muni is saying that he can think about the Lord in samadhi, samadhina, anusmara. So you can think about the Lord, his various pastimes, and then you can describe them. For what? For the purpose of Akhila Bandha Muktaye, for the purpose of delivering the entire creation, all the people of the universe, from the bondage of material existence. So, Prabhupada writes, Sri Narad Rishi, being the best amongst the Vaishnavas, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures. And thus he advises Sri Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature which is not only attractive but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. Srila Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. Srila Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, and determined to deliver the fallen souls rotting in material activities. The fallen souls are very eager to receive novel informations every day, and the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva or Narada can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual worlds. So, Sri Vyasadeva, he has all these qualifications. He can see things in right perspective, and he's fixed in his vows of devotional service, determined to deliver the people. So all these are the qualifications of Vyasadeva, and so therefore Narad Muni is requesting him to give the spiritual literature describing the glories of the Lord. And that spiritual literature is unlimited news from the spiritual worlds. Srila Prabhupada tells this pastime of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who used to bring out this daily newspaper called Nadya Prakash, daily newspaper on spiritual subjects. So one person came to him and asked, how you are writing this daily newspaper on spiritual subjects? What do you have daily? Some spiritual information? So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he replied by saying that how in this entire creation, 3/4 is spiritual world. This material world is only 1/4. And in this 1/4 material creation, there are so many planets, so many universes. Within each universe, unlimited planets. And then one of those planets is the Earth planet. On this Earth planet, there are so many countries. In each country, there are so many cities. And in every city, there are hundreds of newspapers daily on material subject matters. So, if in the 1/4 creation, somebody can bring out daily newspapers on material subject matters, then how much more can be written about the 3/4 spiritual creation? So that was his answer. So the point is that the spiritual subject matters are unlimited. So much so that Ananta Shesh, with his thousands of mouths, is describing the glories of the Lord, but can never come to an end. Everything unlimited. So therefore, yes, there is unlimited information from the spiritual world. So our acharyas also have given us so much literature, spiritual literatures, and there is no dearth of spiritual literatures, and one simply needs to take advantage of these spiritual literatures. Okay. And Prabhupada is describing how there are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. See how many times Prabhupada is used? Thousands and thousands of literary men, thousands of literary works for thousands and thousands of years. But all this literary work is what? All material, materialistic. Therefore, unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. And so, therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. So, Prabhupada uses amazing language. So, spiritual vacuum, there's a spiritual vacuum in all those literatures. And this is what we need to be convinced of. That even though there may be so many other literatures which may apparently look literary, from a literary viewpoint, more sophisticated, more better written, but still there will be a spiritual vacuum if it is not in relation to Krishna. And therefore, as we were discussing yesterday also, therefore one should be careful while reading these other literatures. Otherwise, sometimes we may read these other literatures and we may think that, oh, these books are much better written than Srila Prabhupada's books. They're more, the language and other things are better. So then one gets attracted to the externals, one gets attracted to such literatures, and if one gets attracted to such literatures, then what will happen? One will experience a spiritual vacuum. So, the mind and the intelligence may be satisfied, but the soul will be starving. Okay. And then one will simply be affected by the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. So, therefore, we should stick to the pure spiritual literature given by our own acharyas and not be attracted here and there. And even within spiritual literature also, there may be so many other spiritual books written by so many different authors, and apparently they may appear to be more attractive. But we should know what we are really interested in. Are we interested in the spiritual substance, or are we interested in something else? Wait just a second, let's complete this purport. So the Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. So only the transcendental literature can fill the spiritual vacuum and give real peace and satisfaction. And such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lords can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives who are completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lords. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. So Srila Prabhupada writes this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Who can actually write transcendental literature describing the pastimes of the Lord? Only the liberated souls. Same point. Only the liberated souls, because only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and the transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. And so, of course, others can also write, following in the footsteps of the liberated souls, in order to explain the literature which is given by the liberated souls. Following in their footsteps, one can write, but one should understand that the real adhikar for writing transcendental literature is only for the liberated souls. Okay, and so therefore, it's again, these days there are so many books in the market, and people tend to get attracted just on the basis of the composition and how it is written, and how much it's appealing to one's mind and intelligence, and so many other things like that, based on mundane moral values. So, but that's not transcendental literature. Transcendental literature should be simply based on the spiritual platform. And the descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect, not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only can one serve the sense proprietor Rishikesh. Okay, so the Supreme Lord has purified senses, and who can know him, who can describe him? Only one who has purified senses. So therefore the liberated person has perfect senses, and so only he can actually serve Rishikesh. So we are simply trying to assist those liberated souls in their devotional service. Therefore all our devotional service is offered how? Through the Guru Parampara. Through the Guru Parampara. Then only it becomes acceptable. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore is the perfect description of the all-perfect personality of Godhead by the all-perfect personality Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Okay, so these are all the qualifications of Vyasadeva. And therefore Narad Muni is requesting Vyasadeva to write about transcendental literatures, because he is perfectly qualified to do so.
Liberated souls means pure yogis.
Yes.
Because even the jnanis are liberated.
Is that real liberation? Vimukta manina. They think themselves to be liberated. That is also one aspect of liberation, we can say. But then that's not ultimate liberation. Because it is not ultimate liberation, therefore, Aruya Krishnena Parampadam Patanti Adaha Anadrita Yushmadangraya. Because it is not ultimate liberation, therefore they tend to fall down from that liberated platform. So it is liberation from one perspective, yes, it is a liberated platform, being liberated from the influence of three modes, but that is not sufficient. So the real liberation is mukti ritva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavastiti. That is real liberation. Okay. So now, in the next verse he says, so what if somebody describes subject matters which are not on the transcendental platform? What is the result of such descriptions? He is described in the next verse. Tato vanyatha kinchana yad vivakshatah pritak drishastat krita rupa namabhi nakarhe chitkvapi cha dustita matir labhet vata hatanaurivaspadam. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Okay, read this purport.
Vyasa is the editor of all description of Vedic literature. And thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by furtive activities, speculative knowledge, mystic powers, devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their mind in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Narad Dev is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva, and thus is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord, no one else. In fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Purana other than Bhagavad Purana because slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such a havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of ideas separate from the absolute truth, personality of Godhead. The most effective part of worshipping demigod is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principle of Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for the self-realization in eternal relation with the personality of Godhead by devotional service in transcendental love. The example of boat disturbed by whirling wind is suitable in this respect. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of selection of object.
Okay. So here, Nadamani is describing that if you discuss or if you write about subject matters which are not directly dealing with glorification of the Lord, what will be the result? Tata anyatha kinchana, anyatha, apart from this glorification, anything, something, kinchana, something, whatever it may be. So if one describes, so the result will be, so one may describe so many namabhi, so many names, forms, so all this may be there, but the result will be dustita matihi. The result will be the mind will become agitated. Because that is the result of materialistic subject matters. Anything which is materialistic simply agitates the mind. And is given an example just like Vata Hatha Nau. Nau means a boat that is tossed about by the winds. So therefore, Narad Muni is pointing out to Vyasdev that you have given so many literatures which are discussing some material subject matters like worship of the demigods. And so therefore, by all this subject matter, people's minds will simply become agitated. They won't be fixed in the devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavad Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of Godhead. So the result of all this other literatures Narad Muni is pointing out will simply result in disturbances to the mind, agitation to the mind, and people will not be able to focus on one thing. So therefore there are so many paths, so many different concoctions, speculations, so many things are there because of so many literatures being available. Okay, Prabhupada's lecture on the verse, please read.
Now Vyasdev can say, yes, I have already thought about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have inserted the activities of Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, his teachings, Bhagavad Gita in the Mahabharata. So Narad Muni says, yes, that you have done, I admit, but that will not help much. Just like Bhagavad Gita is being read practically all over the world, but they cannot understand. Why? The reason is, here it is stated that na karhichit vapicha dusrija matir labheta vatata
No Rivaspadam.
no ivaspadam. The little idea of God is there, certainly, in every literature, every scripture. But those who are too much disturbed, they cannot accept it. Vata. Just like if your ship is on the ocean and it is being tossed by a heavy wind, you cannot sit very nicely. I have got experience when I was coming to your country. So it is moving like that. Similarly, those who are too much disturbed by these material affairs, Mahabharata is the history. So there are politics, sociology, intricacy, so many nonsense things in which you have given Bhagavad Gita, little portion. That's all right, but that will not help very much.
So, Mahabharata, so huge. How many verses? Some 1 lakh verses. And Bhagavad Gita? 700. What is the proportion? So that's what Narad Muni is saying. Okay, you have given something about devotional service. Bhagavad Gita is there, but it is so little. So that is what Narad Muni is constantly condemning right from the beginning. He is condemning the proportion. You have given so much about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all that you have given. And direct devotional service you have given in comparison very less. So that is Narad Muni's point. And therefore, so just like how many people are attracted to Mahabharata and how many people are attracted to Bhagavad Gita? So when Mahabharata is there, when Mahabharata was playing on the television, I don't know how many of you were there at that time. But then the whole country was like on curfew. That 1 hour, not a single person on the street. So much attraction to Mahabharata. Why? Because there are so many topics which are very appealing to the conditioned soul. And then Bhagavad Gita, something little in between, and that too, how many people are interested in Bhagavad Gita? That nobody is interested. The rest of the thing, people are interested. So that is what Narad Muni is condemning. You have given so many of these materialistic subject matters which are simply going to agitate the minds. Okay. So now the next verse. जुगुप्सितं धर्मकृते अनुशासतः स्वभावरक्तस्य महान् व्यतिक्रमः यद्वाक्यतो धर्मरितीतरस्थितो न मन्यते तस्य निवारणं जनः. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. So therefore, jugupsitam, Narad Muni is using strong word. He's saying what you have written is condemned, jugupsitam. Why? Because Swabhava raktasya. What is the swabhav? The swabhav of the people is, of the conditioned souls, is naturally to enjoy. That is the swabhav. And now what you have done? Yes. Encourage sense gratification and made it bona fide. Bona fide sense gratification. That is what you have done. So, he says, Mahan Vyatikrama. You have done a very great blunder. Very great blunder you have done. Because, so if people are told, okay, sense gratification is also bona fide, then who will give up sense gratification? So obviously they will prefer that path, isn't it? Where there is sense gratification, plus it has been made bona fide. By whom? By such a great authority as Vyasadeva himself. He has made it bona fide. So then who will give up sense gratification? Everyone will take up to the path of bona fide sense gratification. So therefore, here Narad Muni is criticizing Vyasadeva. So as Prabhupada writes in the purport, initially he's talking about how the human beings are in the imprisoned life for condemned conditional souls. And Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. Okay, so they will never give up. And then he's talking about Lord Buddha and all that. And in the last paragraph, he says, in histories like the Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. The Bhagavad Gita is there in Mahabharata. The whole idea of the Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of Bhagavad Gita, that one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely the Bhagavad Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. And then he's giving a nice analogy. A patient suffering from a particular type of malady is almost always inclined to accept eatables which are forbidden for him. The expert physician does not make compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not at all take. So I think so. I told this incident Prabhupada tells in a lecture of when he was staying at Allahabad. There was a neighboring house, and one day he heard the sound of the mother beating the child like anything. I told, correct?
Yes.
And then why she was beating?
Because she had fed this pakoda and puri to her younger brother. who was suffering from typhoid.
So yes, so two children, and then when the mother was away, then the one child felt compassion on the other child who was starving from eating all these oily foodstuffs which were supposed to be avoided because of typhoid, but false compassion. And so the other child gave, and when the mother came back, she was furious and was beating the child. Why did you give? So in the same way, here Srila Prabhupada is saying that the physician does not make compromise just because a patient likes certain eatables. It is natural for the patient to want to eat anything and everything, but if he wants to be cured of the disease, then he needs to follow. There cannot be any compromise. So similarly, here Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, you have compromised, you have made a compromise by allowing people to accept sense gratification in the name of religion. And so then people will take to this path and nobody will renounce sense gratification. Nobody will take to the path of pure devotional service. And that is why Narada Muni is condemning Vyasadeva. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada also said, when there was certain big personality from some material fields that came to meet Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada didn't compromise in his teachings. He spoke everything straightforward, and so the man was a little upset. And so the disciples were feeling little sorry. And they were suggesting to Srila Prabhupada, maybe you should not have been so heavy with this man. And Srila Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj didn't compromise, and I don't compromise. No compromise. And you also don't compromise. So that was Prabhupada's stand. And Prabhupada says in some lectures, if I would have compromised, especially with these four principles, I could have got millions of followers, but I never compromised. So we see right from the beginning, Prabhupada was firm on following these four regulative principles, giving up sinful life, and he never compromised. So therefore, this is the mode of our acharyas, beginning from Narada Muni. Okay, Prabhupada's lecture, please read.
Because they will accept you as authority and they will think this is religion. They will not make further progress. They will stick to that principle. So therefore it is abominable.
So they will accept it as authority. Continue.
When they will be advised higher truth, if these things are instructed for higher elevation of life, they will not accept. They will say, oh, my religion says this, so I must do it.
So it becomes bona fide. Wait. Read this.
Vyasadeva may say that, sir, I have already compiled so many books, 18 Puranas, Mahabharata, even Vedanta Sutra. So are they not sufficient literature to revive Krishna consciousness? So in reply to that, Narad says, Jugapsitam dharma krute nashasaka. So Narad Muni says that you have described these things for which a man has got natural propensity in a religious form. So it is Jugapsitam. This is most abominable. Just see. Even the restricted system of marriage, drinking and meditating described in the Shastra, that is also condemned by Narada. Jugapsitam dharma krute nushasata. You are the leader of the Shastras. You are writing Shastras. People will follow you. You are authority. And if you recommend animal sacrifice, they will take it. They have got already natural tendency and they will accept it. This is the religious process. And when they will be forbidden by other senior persons, they will not care for it. So it is Jugapsitam. It is abominable.
Yes, sir.
So here it seems that very nice analogy of this physician is mentioned. And here Narad Muni is also telling about that even marriage and drinking and eating is also condemned.
Mm.
So, but then, we see that there are three different kinds of karma. One is Nishedha karma, which is completely abandoned, like these four sinful activities.
Vikarma.
Yeah, sort of. And then another is positive activities, which are very much encouraged, which are very favorable, anukul, to bhakti. And then, but then, somewhere in the between, it is called as kama karma. Like we have
Kamya karma.
kamya karma. So, which can be doubted, which are not completely nishedh as such, which are not like we karma sort of. And that is like Prabhupada also encourages. So here when Vyasdev is mentioning about that I have written, actually it's like trying to dovetail that passion. We all have passion. So we cannot come directly to the mode of goodness. So if you can elaborate this.
Yes, so everyone is at different levels, and according to the level of the person, then they can engage their propensities. All that is correct. But the point that Narad Muni is trying to make is proportion. All the other things you are given so much, and the actual pure devotional service is so little in comparison. That is what is being condemned. It is not that the other literatures are absolutely useless or they're not needed. The very purpose of the Vedas is to bring different people at different levels to the path of transcendence gradually. That is the whole purpose of the Vedas, correct? The 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, the example is given that just like a mother wants to feed bitter medicine to the child, how does she do it? Some sweet. So the child thinks he is getting sweet, but he gets the medicine anyways. So similarly, all these other aspects of the Vedas, Karma Kand, Jnana Kand, Upasana Kand, all this, or especially the Karma Kand, which is talking about higher sense gratification, better sense gratification. So that is being given because that is what people want. But because they are following Shastra, they are following the Shastra Vidhi, therefore they get purified by performing that. So that's understood that yes, different people are of different levels and all these are required. But if there is no alternative, then people will think this is the only path. That is what Narad Muni is contending. If the alternative is not presented, then what people will think? They will think this is the only path, regulated sense gratification. And since the natural tendency, that is what it is, swabhava, the swabhava is already there for the conditioned souls to go for sense gratification. So if they are told, if only this path is presented, that is what they will accept. But then when an alternative path is presented, pure devotional service and the glories of pure devotional service, then those who are inclined to that can at least take it up. But if no alternative is presented, then everyone will go on the same path of regulated sense gratification.
So here so there is sadhana and seva. Of course, in our spiritual practice, seva is equally important as sadhana, as we were discussing also last time. So
No, for
but then-
sadhana and
But then Prabhupada said
seva is a part of sadhana.
Yeah.
Sadhana is a part of seva. Both are related.
So, but then Prabhupada oftentimes says also that because you cannot chant whole day, and that's why I have created this whole programs, like do some seva and but otherwise the main thing is chanting holy names and engage in the sadhana, because we are not capable of doing that. So maybe is it also somewhere like sort of compromisation can be said, or how?
No. What are we doing? See, the main activities of devotional service are what? Navida Bhakti, correct? Shravanam Kirtanam. So, essentially we are engaging in preaching activities, correct? What is the whole institution meant for? Preaching. This is a preaching movement. We are simply following, as Srila Prabhupada said many times, we are simply following the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What is Mahaprabhu's instruction? यारे देखो दारे कहो कृष्ण उपदेश आमार आज्ञाय गुरु होई तारा ये देश. Prabhupada says we are preaching only because Mahaprabhu has given us this instruction. And this entire ISKCON society is meant for what? It is only meant to facilitate preaching. And what is preaching in the Navida Bhakti? Kirtanam. It is Kirtanam. And I don't know if that quote comes here, but there is a lecture where Srila Prabhupada has said that Kirtanam means any glorification of the Lord. So one can glorify the Lord by singing, one can glorify the Lord by speaking, one can glorify the Lord by printing, one can glorify the Lord by painting, one can glorify the Lord by distributing the literatures, one can glorify the Lord by worshipping the deity, one can glorify the Lord by cooking prasadam. Everything is preaching. So ultimately, everything what we are doing in ISKCON is what? Kirtanam. It is all Kirtanam. Okay? There is no compromise.
Like that, then Vyasdev can also present that in one sense, then he is also not compromising, because if one has that particular vision.
See, the point is the compromise is in the proportion. That is where the compromise is. So much has been presented about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but very less about pure devotional service in comparison. Okay? Okay, yes, Madhusudan.
There were mentioned that different worship of demigod will
Agitate the mind.
agitate the mind,
Mm.
and then it will surely create pantheism.
Mm.
So how you can you explain?
So you want to know what is pantheism? So pantheism means worship of many gods. Worship of many gods is called as pantheism, as if they are all equal. That is called as pantheism. So that's what people do, right? So they think worship of gods, worship of demigods, worship of Vishnu, everything is same. Why? Because everything has been presented as bona fide. Then people tend to think, okay, that's also fine, this is also fine, everything is fine. Okay. So now, in the next verse, again he is encouraging Vyasadeva to describe the Supreme Lords. And again he's talking about why Vyasadeva should write. What are the qualifications of Vyasadeva? Again he's mentioning about qualifications of Vyasadeva. Vichakshno syarati veditum vibhor anantaparasya nivrittita sukham pravartamanasya guneranatmanas tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibho. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, here Narad Muni is telling that the Supreme Lord is unlimited, Ananta Parasya. Therefore, anyone and everyone cannot describe the Supreme Lord. There is a qualification needed to describe the Supreme Lord. So what is the qualification required? Vichakshana. Vichakshana means very expert. So one has to be very expert in transcendental subject matters. Only he can describe, because the Supreme Lord is Ananta Parasya, unlimited. So therefore, any ordinary person who is attached to materialistic life cannot describe. But then so who can describe? One who is Nivritta Sukham. Nivritta Sukham. One who is retired from this material happiness. Only he can describe about the Supreme Brahman. So therefore, Lord Rishabhdev is also saying, Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhyet yasmat brahma saukyam tvanantam. So when one wants to experience Brahma Sukh, then one should give up the material Sukh. One has to perform tapasya to give up the material Sukh. Then one can experience the Supreme Brahman. Then one can experience Brahma Sukh. So therefore here also he is saying that only one who is nivritta sukham, one who has given up the material happiness, only he can describe about the Supreme Lord, about the Supreme Brahman. And so he's saying that most people in this world, they are very much attached to material life. So therefore, you have the right vision, and so therefore you show them, darshaya, you show them the ways by which one can approach the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Prabhupada says, theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And we know the famous verse. Which is the verse? The Lord cannot be understood by blunt material senses. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriye. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. Only the very expert who have almost retired from materialistic activities by culture of spiritual knowledge can be admitted to the study of this great science. Then he's quoting from Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam Sahasresham. And out of many thousands of such transcendently realized persons, only a few can understand a person. Sri Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Nath to describe the science of God directly by relating his transcendental activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personality expert in this science, and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it. And Shukdev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is the right person to receive it, because both of them are detached from material enjoyment. Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses. So the Bhagavatam is like medicine, and so therefore it can act as medicine on the conditioned souls. Because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual, literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord, thereby they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material diseases. And here Srila Prabhupada has written something very beautiful. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. Devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. So Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. Okay, so what are some of the expert preaching methods that our acharyas have brought about for the sake of preaching beyond time, place, circumstances? Let's take examples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay, he brought about a magazine, Harmonist. Okay, fine. Dioramas, yes. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was very much known for diorama exhibitions. That was something unique at that time. What else? Organized preaching, yes. He started the Gaudiya Math, an institution. Organized preaching, yes. Brihad Mridanga, what is that?
Printing press.
Yes, he gave a lot of importance to printing press, printing books and magazines. Printing press was practically in the temple hall. Hmm?
Wearing shirt, pant, and preaching on the Venus and Neptune.
Okay, so he did wear suit and tie and to preach, especially to the British at that time.
Traveling west.
Yes, he sent some of his disciples to the west. Yes.
Institution.
Yes, institutions. Yes, he went in a car to Radhakund. The Babajis were shocked. So he did all these innovative things. What about Srila Prabhupada? Hmm? Okay, he started life membership, especially in India. So, in the West, devotees were distributing books and doing Sankirtan, doing Harinam Kirtan on the streets, and people would get donations. But then he found that in India, people were thinking they're beggars, doing some chanting on the streets, and people would throw some coins. So then Prabhupada said, stop it, it doesn't work here. So that's how we started the life membership. People like to be members of a respectable society, international society. Yes, something else? Okay, Srila Prabhupada connected marriages because there was no one else to. Not that that needs to be continued. Huh? Okay, Bhaktivedanta Institute for scientific preaching. What else? Okay, started the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, especially for printing his books.
Magnificent temples.
Of course, temples were always there. Hmm? Okay, traveling Sankirtan party. Book distribution on mass scale, unheard in the history of religious movements. Such large scale distribution of religious books.
Govinda's
Okay, Govinda's restaurants. Padayatra. What was that? Rath Yatras, yes, Rath Yatras all over the world. Yes, the GBC managing body, of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also wanted, but they didn't do it. What else?
farm communities.
Farm communities, yes. Hmm? Yes, dramas, of course, dramas were always there.
Initiating Westerners in Brahman.
Was that?
Initiating Westerners, Brahman Diksha. Even
Okay, especially giving Brahman Diksha to ladies.
Food for Life program.
Food for Life program,
Brahmacharini Ashram.
Brahmacharini Ashram in the West,
School Gurukuls.
Gurukuls. Again, of course, Gurukuls were there, but then he introduced them in the West. Yes.
Use of harmonium.
Before Prabhupada, harmonium didn't exist.
I think Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj used.
Harmonium is not Indian actually.
Guitar.
Acha.
Other instruments.
Anyways, whatever, that it was there before also, not so.
Buying churches and converting them.
Ah, yes. So Prabhupada actually mentions this in the Dhruva Maharaj pastime. Dhruva Maharaj was advised to worship the Supreme Lord according to Desha Kala Vibhagavat, according to time, place and circumstances. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that how in the West especially, the first temple of ISKCON was what? Yes, storefront. Just a shop on the side of the street. He converted in temple. And so devotees thought temple means storefront. So therefore the next temple in San Francisco, that also was storefront only. And then of course Prabhupada took so many churches, converted in temples, especially Los Angeles. And so Prabhupada writes in that purport, so many of my Indian god brothers, they criticize, oh, what type of temple, where is the Gopuram, where is this, where is that? But Prabhupada took the essence. Okay. So yes, so Prabhupada did many of these revolutionary things to expand preaching according to time, place and circumstance. And so Prabhupada is writing that yes, that is required. competent means to inject what? Devotional service into the dull brains of the materialistic population. But who can make these changes? Yes, Vichakshanaha, the very expert devotees, only they can bring about these changes. So you may be aware of that pastime where Shrutagiti Prabhu once, when he was massaging Srila Prabhupada's feet, so Shrutagiti Prabhu asked him, so how can we know what can be changed and what cannot be changed in devotional service? You know this pastime?
Yes.
Yes. Who said yes? Okay, so what was the answer Prabhupada gave? Yes, that requires a little intelligence. That's all Moshe Prabhupada said. So what type of intelligence is that? Yes, spiritual intelligence. Of course, Bhurishan Prabhu gives a whole purport to that. And then he describes, so who can change? So what does this little intelligence mean? So he describes that how if a non-adjustable principle is changed, thinking it to be adjustable, there will only be havoc. And if what is adjustable is not adjusted, then that will lead to fanaticism. So therefore, so he says that if a non-adjustable principle is adjusted or changed, that will lead to havoc in spiritual life. And at the same time, if what is adjustable, what can be adjusted, is not adjusted according to time, place and circumstances in order to help preaching, then that will simply be fanaticism. And so then preaching will not expand if one is simply fanatic about things. But then one needs to understand what can be adjusted and what cannot be adjusted. For that, what is required? Spiritual intelligence. So, if one thinks one's spiritual intelligence is developed, then okay, one can decide what can be changed, what cannot be changed. But of course, a Vaishnava is always humble. A Vaishnava never thinks, oh, my spiritual intelligence is developed. Does a Vaishnava think like that? And in today's purport we were reading about Prahlad Maharaj. What is the mood of the Vaishnava? Yes, the Vaishnava never thinks himself qualified. So therefore, a Vaishnava always thinks that his spiritual intelligence is not developed, and therefore he always consults other Vaishnavas. And of course, if one thinks one's spiritual intelligence is not developed, then the best thing to do is, before making any changes, better to always consult. And so in that context, there is that well-known statement which we have definitely spoken of before. First canto, 19th chapter, verse number 12 purport, correct? Just check. It's verse number 12. Any decision, however important it may be, must always be confirmed with higher authorities. That makes the matter perfect. 19th chapter. Is it 12? Okay. Read the exact statement.
Any important decision, however firmly fixed, should be confirmed by some authority. That makes the matter perfect.
Yes.
1:19:12.
1:19:12. So therefore, it's always better to confirm our decisions with some higher authorities. So because who can make such changes? Who best knows how to give Krishna consciousness to others? Vichakshana. Those who are very experts. And so therefore, it's always best that we consult those who are experts. Otherwise the mind will give so many reasons why this can be changed, why that can be changed, so many things. But then one needs to consult experts. So Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, you are experts. Why you are experts? Because nivritta sukham, because you are detached from material sense gratification, material happiness. Therefore, you are expert. Because if one is attached to material happiness, what will be the result? How will one's decisions be affected when one is attached to material happiness? Bolo. How will one's decisions be affected if one is attached to material happiness?
Maybe buy and take decision.
Yes, why?
Because he will always, let's suppose I am, somebody is attached with some material desire, then he will, whenever he will make decision, then he will think of getting that.
Correct. So if one is attached to material happiness, then one's decisions will be in accordance to what is favorable for one's material happiness. That will become the basis. This is one point. Another point is attachment to material happiness means Rajogun. And when one is influenced by Rajogun, what happens? One's vision is clouded. Therefore, it becomes very difficult to discriminate. Proper discrimination can only take place on the platform of Sattva. So therefore, Narada is telling Vyasdev, because you are totally detached from material happiness, therefore you are the expert person to give this knowledge of pure devotional service to the people in Chakra. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll take one question and then a break.
We are talking about adjusting the principle, not adjusting the whatever. So in that relation, I want
Of course, we adjust the details, not the principles, in terms of nectar devotion.
Let's say in terms of, I have come across some people. There are some deviant sects. They talks about they don't impose that no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and they say that they are, and still they are giving initiation, and they talks about so high philosophy like the Radha Dasyam and all those things, like Radha Lila Radha Krishna pastime and all. And they say they are most merciful, that's why they are giving them diksha. So how to answer this kind of thing? How to do it?
What is their authority to do so?
They like they give me example of Nityananda Vamsha.
What is Nityananda?
So they are talking, they are coming biological succession, but Prabhupada repeat this in NOD, that's I'm aware.
Yes.
And even Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says with the grace motion, that also I'm aware.
So all this is bogus concoctions, nonsensical concoctions. So that's what is being told over here. So what authority they have to make these changes? On one hand, they're indulging in sense gratification, and then on the other hand, they're talking big things. What is their authority? So it's all nonsense. Okay? Adityananda? And then Sharad.
Once in Bhagavatam class, he was mentioning that when Prabhupada in America went for first time initiation, first time in ISKCON, so he was just desiring to give initiation to boys only. Then the girls there, they said that we will boycott ISKCON if you don't give it to us. Then Prabhupada was forced to give them initiation.
I suppose this is in relation to second initiation. Brahman initiation. Not first in relation to second.
Just a small doubt here, that in the translation it says only a very expert personality retired from the activities of material happiness desires to understand this knowledge. One may say that I am not as of now retired from material happiness.
At least one must desire to retire.
Pardon?
At least one must have a desire to retire.
So then, without which one will not be able to understand the spiritual values. So one may say that this is, then it is not meant for me then.
So that's why we said, so what's the goal? What is the goal? We have a goal to continue materialistic life or give up materialistic life?
No, I am speaking from the point of view of an ordinary person.
Yes. So that's what. So an ordinary person who has his goal to ultimately give up material life, material happiness, then if one has that goal, then this path is for him. So therefore, when one understands there is no happiness in the material world, then this is the path. It does not mean that one is already totally detached from material happiness, but at least one has a desire to give it. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. 10 minutes break.